Welcome to At Home with Kelly and Tiffany, where we share powerful tools, exciting education, and relatable views about holistic health, physiological birth, and thriving in the female body. We're home birth midwives in sunny San Diego, passionate about the alternatives that give women control and confidence in health, in birth, and in life. We've poured a lot of love into creating very in-depth and high-value offerings, a monthly membership, a physiological birth course, and holistic guides for the women who really want to dive all the way in. But this podcast, we want to bring zero-cost information about health and natural birth and make these important topics accessible, always. Your support of the show is also zero cost and means everything to us. When you leave a review, share an episode, and join our newsletter, it really helps us keep this space open, ad-free, and full of honest, valuable conversations. Now, let's dive into today's show. Welcome back, ladies, to the At Home with Kelly and Tiffany podcast. We are here with a really exciting episode. It's one of our favorites to talk about, which is a birth story. I think because we love storytelling and sharing stories, we've kind of become known for sharing stories, particularly on Instagram. But it's been super cool to be able to bring that over to this side of what we are doing. So excited to kind of get into a very sweet, hopefully encouraging birth story, especially given kind of the things that she had to work through throughout her pregnancy and all of that good stuff. So excited to jump into that with you today.
Yes, we are. And I have a review to share. And I'm so glad that we're sharing it today because all the ones before it have disappeared because we have ladies leaving new reviews. So we might have to share two an episode at some point. This one is from Mo's Gal. The title is My Favorite Holistic Podcast by far, all caps, by far, 5 stars, of course, Mo's Gal. She says, I love all the holistic tips and tricks for women in any stage of womanhood that y'all share in such a humorous way. I seriously enjoy listening to y'all having so much fun while you share your priceless wisdom and experience with us. Mo's Gal, thank you so much. Let me just say how refreshing it is to hear from 2 experts in the field that our female bodies are not a freak of nature or of evolution, but that we were designed by an intelligent creator for pregnancy, birth, and beyond. Not enough experts are willing to acknowledge that fact. Keep up the good work and the humor and keep making a difference in women's lives. Okay, fine. Gal, we will.
Gal. Yeah, absolutely. And just so encouraging.
Like, find that in your Apple Music library. You can ask me to play a radio station or ask for your music on a different app.
Cool. I think that'll be fine.
This is going really well.
Great. But that's just so encouraging and just such a good reminder for what we're doing here, that like, even if everything doesn't necessarily hit for whatever season that you're in and you're like, oh, that's just interesting, just that idea behind like everything is foundational. Where is our foundation and how are we sharing from it? It's just, I don't know, it's just an encouragement to me to hear that landing really well with Mo's Gal.
Thanks, Mo's Gal. You tell us that you heard us read your review and we will buy you a drink, girly. Mm-hmm. Okay, Kelly, icebreaker for this episode. Share quickly because I have a lot about this birth that I want to talk about. What is something hard that you are doing just for the sake of the challenge? I think we kind of neglect this area of like growth in our lives sometimes. When we have control of so many pieces, we kind of like avoid doing hard things. There's so much value to just doing something hard just to be like, oh, I did that. There's so much crossover with birth too. Birth is like challenging, hard, and some women honestly just embrace natural physiological birth because they want the benefit of getting to the end of it and going, that was so freaking hard and I did it. And like, that's a reason enough, right? There's so many reasons, but like, I think as a society, we tend to say like making everything easier is better. And I disagree.
Yes. And I mean, sometimes easier is, wonderful, but I think we have allowed ourselves to become lazy in certain ways, like whether that's, mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever. The thing that I am doing right now, so last year I shared I was trying to do pull-ups because I had broke my arm like right by my shoulder and it was hard. So anyway, last year I was like, I'm going to do this because I thought I never would be able to do one again. And was absolutely able to do them. And I was like, look at what my body can do. And so that felt really encouraging. So this year I've been watching my daughter like kill it in her gymnastics. She's like continuing to rise up all of these like levels and whatever. Things that I never learned to do when I was little. I never learned how to do a cartwheel. And so my daughter was like, that's like the easiest thing that you can do. And I was like, well, not to me. Very hard. So I have been working. This makes no, like, I don't get a benefit necessarily. Like, it doesn't do my family well that I know how to do a cartwheel or whatever, but I'm working towards being able to do a really good cartwheel simply because it's hard for me and it's something that I really wanted to do as a kid and I never learned. And so I'm like, well, that doesn't mean I just can throw it away and I don't ever have to learn. So that is my hard thing I am doing just simply for the challenge of it.
It's amazing. I love too that you're willing to say this doesn't have any particular benefit. Not just doing it hard.
Yeah, I mean, I like love learning how to use my body in different ways. You know what I mean? Like learning how to be like, oh, I can get up and stand, from the ground in different ways, or keeping my body like young as I can in terms of movement. But like, no, it's not gonna like benefit my family or in any way if I'm able to do this particular thing. But it has been enjoyable to be like, oh yeah, this is a good reminder. Like fail, 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 fail. But like you're still getting benefit while you're doing the failing. And each fail is a little bit less than the last fail.
I love it. Beautiful. Really beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, so jumping into this birth story, I honestly was so blessed to go back and look through this client's chart. It felt, okay, this is a little self-centered. I realize what I'm about to say. Because what it felt like to me was like having coffee with this client and catching up and looking at and like just reviewing the birth together. But we didn't do that. She wasn't a part of it. It was just me and her chart and making the little notes and stuff for it. But it blessed me so much because it just made me remember every single detail and it made me fall in love with this family and just stoked my love and appreciation for this journey in particular that she was on. And then I automatically felt so grateful all over again, even though this is several years ago, so grateful that we got to be a part of it and got to witness it. And I was like so reminded of how good it is for our hearts and our minds to remember, to just take the time to go back and really remember the really cool things that we've been brought through and grown through and just experienced, especially with other people. It is like, it's worth putting time into remembering. And oof, this one got me. So let's get started a little bit with the history of this client. There was a lot that kind of like she came in with, and there was a lot that we navigated from a midwifery perspective. And then there was a lot of pieces that, I mean, we utilized the medical model with this client too. So let's talk about her history a little bit and her previous pregnancies and stuff. Yes. Okay. So she had an adult child already. At this point, she had a 19-year-old. And that was her first kiddo she had a hospital birth. She had an epidural. She was very young. That was just her own experience there. And then 17 years later, she started another family with a different husband, completely different season of life. And at that point, she just knew with her experience, with just her level of maturity, that she wanted a home birth. And so I actually met her the first time with the preceptor I was training with as a student. And I ended up not going to her birth because I wasn't continuing on with that preceptor by the time that she had her baby. But it was the absolute like encouragement of our brand new midwifery career when she reached out to us and said, hey, the little bit of time that I had with you, even though you weren't at my birth, made such an impression that now I'm pregnant again. And, it was like 2.5 years later, and she wanted to explore the idea of working together with us as like almost brand new midwives. Not that she had a bad experience at all with her first home birth. I think it was a really great experience. But what she did bring into her history a little bit was her first 2 pregnancies, she had hypertension that came on in the last month of pregnancy and was really difficult to manage. And so we kind of had this challenge ahead of us with this particular client, and we trialed our hypertension protocol to prevent hypertension for the very first time. And so I know last episode we talked about using herbs in pregnancy. And that's what we did. I just applied information. I applied research. I applied the resources and education that we had taken upon ourselves at that point as new midwives to understand new information. And we created our hypertension prophylaxis, which actually did prevent her from getting high blood pressure in this pregnancy. And that is probably one of my favorite parts of this story.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, as like newer midwives, it felt so good to implement something and actually see the outcome, and her be so on board to wanting to try it and being encouraged and, emailing and being like, hey, so far this is working, and how just excited she was to be a part of that. It was the midwifery model of care, like to a T. It was really cool to see. And so that pregnancy, it was fun because she already like had this, experience with you and relationship with you. But usually when that happens with one of us, right, we've worked with somebody else before, not together. It's like just an easy, like if they want to work with you, the assumption is that they're going to be cool working with me too. And it was just very comfortable from the very kind of get-go. She decided to do co-care with an OB throughout her pregnancy. And I'm forgetting necessarily if that was an insurance thing or if that was just a potential desire in case, something kind of went a little sideways as she got a bit closer to having her baby. But it was actually really helpful because we got a lot of great feedback from this particular doctor throughout her pregnancy who was really on board with her making her own decisions and all that good stuff. A couple things that we did have to deal with. One, you mentioned that kind of hypertension stuff that we were kind of prophylactically working through. We also were working with some issues that she was having with blood sugar stabilization. So she was tracking her own meals and doing a glucometer at home, having pretty high post-meal blood sugar ratings. And so we had to kind of dial in, what are you eating? What is triggering these things? Let's make some shifts here. Let's see what we can do. And she was willing, I mean, as it sounds like already, but you can guess, she was really willing to do the hard work. So it's really easy to be like, hey, look at this information that we gave. It like felt so good to, be so helpful. But really, she had to implement a lot in that pregnancy to keep it low risk and to keep herself feeling good. And so that was really encouraging for me as a midwife to see, to be like, yeah, that's the point. Like, we're mutually respecting each other, trusting each other, and doing this together was just really, really cool to see. And so she was able to kind of stabilize those things as her pregnancy went on with that hard work that she was able to do. So that's absolutely possible to do with, nutrition. She had to really work with supplementation and, lifestyle rhythms, things like that to kind of stabilize some of those things. But it, again, absolutely is possible. But as she got closer, our minds were on her blood sugar, certainly, but also on her blood pressure, right? As things were kind of progressing on in her pregnancy. But as we were taking care of her around 34 weeks, we were listening with a fetoscope. And I'm pretty sure it was you, Tiff, who heard originally heart arrhythmia, or saying like, this is just a little different. This is interesting. And that piques our interest, right? We're like, okay, this isn't necessarily what we've been hearing previously. This is sounding a little bit different. Let's kind of dig into that a little bit. Let's pay attention to that. We don't want to miss anything. One of the absolute gifts, I think, of listening to a heartbeat like that in particular is to be able to catch some things that, not saying a Doppler can't catch that, but just it's a very particular type of heart rate that we're listening to with the fetoscope. And you were able to kind of catch something that, sounded a little bit different.
And it was like, I think some people think that like everything's fine with a midwife as long as everything's normal and fine. And that if you have a complication or some deviation from normal, then, it's just all lost. We're just, we should have been with a doctor this whole time. And there's so much more nuance to that. So I can listen to the baby that I've been listening to for the past 6 or 7 months. I know this baby. And now at this point, which like how wherever he was at with his cardiac development, I caught the arrhythmia and I thought, oh, I know that this could be completely benign and fine, or it could be a signal that something else is going on. And so we were able to make the recommendation, let's go in, let's make sure that we can have this, checked out and make sure that it's still safe to have this baby at home. And I think some people just have this really black and white way of looking at midwifery care. Either it's safe or it's not, or we're good or we're not, or it's medical care or it's not. And it was especially helpful that she had co-care with an OB that we trust in our community. So she was able to just jump right in and get, sent to a perinatologist who's a specialist in high-risk pregnancies, and she got a cardio echogram on her baby, so they were able to do a really long study of her baby's heart function, and ultimately was determined, especially with this particular doctor. I think another doctor could say, "Oh, great, here's the perfect reason to not recommend home birth anymore to you. Now we got you. We just don't know. Oh, there's just so much unknown. We don't know what your baby's going to need." But he was like, "No, everything we see here is completely fine and normal. We have no reason to think that a home birth is not safe." So who you get co-care with and who you're asking to partner along with you if you want to have medical care really matters. But then even as we went into pregnancy, his recommendation was to come in those last few weeks and get a non-stress test done twice a week. And she was able to look at the information, the pros and the cons, recognize that it was probably going to cause more anxiety for her, more upset. We're trying to keep blood pressure within normal ranges, right? And so just for peace of mind, she declined those NSTs, and it wasn't irresponsible at all because we did what's called an oscillated acceleration test inside of the clinic each week when we saw her. And it doesn't measure exactly the same way that an NST does, but it's very, very close at looking at babies' health in that moment, especially as they have heart rate variability. And we're able to really kind of track the same metrics, but in a really low technology way. And I think that's another misconception, is that midwives can't perform the same type of testing or get the same type of information or results. But we were able to just give her our limitations and the benefits and the pros and the cons of that. And she could make her own decision about that. And so we also let her know we're going to be monitoring this more in labor. Everything does seem to be fine, but because it's just this little flag, just be expectant that, like, when we arrive to your home, we're going to listen longer than usual. When you're laboring, we're going to listen more often and probably longer than usual. We just want to make sure that the stress of labor on your baby is not going to change anything about the way that this little beat is being skipped. So that was a really great thing to walk through just for us professionally. I mean, we were still newer midwives at this time, and for her to exercise informed consent and for us to make a plan together, even amidst there being like a little flag there, it was cool.
And again, just like midwifery care on display in terms of being able to work together and like, again, as newer midwives, a great opportunity to see, oh, I learned about this thing. I've never actually seen it done. It never had to be done in this, situation that I was in. So it was cool to be able, like, just personally reflecting on that as a professional, to be able to be grown in that way. Throughout this whole time of taking care of her and entering into being on call for her, this is like towards the very beginning of our practice. I feel like this, when I think of her pregnancy and her birth, I think of when you and I like became each other's people for sure. Like we had stuff going on in our personal lives that we were always friends, and we became friends. We started our practice. But I feel like this season of life that we were in while we were caring for her, like solidified that there will like that forever and ever, we will just be each other's person. And so it's an interesting part of thinking back on that, just because we both were going through things within the life of like our families outside of whatever was going on with midwifery. And in some ways it was really helpful to be able to walk into the clinic and be like, I can turn that part off a little bit. It was like something else to kind of think about and to pour my heart into. But it was a very interesting like time of life to be able to sort out what was going on personally versus what was going on professionally. And I can see how that can impact providers in a very specific kind of way, but I think we were really intentional in being like, when we were present somewhere, we are really present. And that was really important to both of us. But that's really what I think about when I think about this birth, of really is what everything else that was going on in our lives at the time.
Yeah. So this birth, her labor started in the middle of the night. So I don't think we got a heads up. I think she just called us in the middle of the night and said, things are really moving along. We knew that she was going to give us more of a heads up than usual because it's her third baby and she lived a little bit further. So she knew we would need a little bit more time. Well, we usually always tell people, don't give us a heads up at night because we're just going to wake up and come to your birth. But this particular night, you had to drop your kids off at your mom's house, right? She was your childcare. So you had to wake your kids up in the middle of the night, put them in the car, drive the opposite direction to your mom's house. Your mom forgot she was on call for you. I think this is the birth where she wasn't answering her phone or coming to the door or something, right? So you had to break into a window to wake her up.
It was an absolute disaster because the plan was for her just to come to my house. Like, hey, if I go to a birth, I need you to come over and just be with the kids. Okay, great. She just didn't sleep with her phone that night. I'm calling. I'm trying to decide, what do I do? Do I wake up all of my kids, bring them, including like the baby? And that's the whole thing. And eventually I was like, well, yeah, I guess I just have to. But yes, I did break in through a window and I terrified her, waking her up and dropping 3 kids and literally just being like, I don't know. I just have to go. I have to get out of here. And I was coming in absolutely hot. I think I got there with, I mean, you have the chart. It was probably just a couple of minutes before she had her baby.
I was just thinking, because you were giving me updates, and I was just thinking, Kelly's not going to make it. You said you were coming, but I'm like, that's fine. I'm just going to be here by myself. That's okay. Every midwife has to go through that thought process at some point. So her history was, her first birth was 22 hours. Her second birth was 15 hours. And at 39 weeks at 10 p.m., her contraction started. We tell our clients, don't call us in the middle of it. Like if it's after, 8 or 9 o'clock at night, don't call us. Just call us if you need us. But she called us at 2:15. In the chart, I said that I arrived at 3:45. So it took even me an hour and a half to get to her. And so I get there at 3:45. She starts pushing at 4:12. Her water breaks at exactly that same time. She's in the tub. It just had barely gotten filled up. Her birth was at 4:20. And then I think in the chart, the first place where I see your initials is like 4:16. So she's already been pushing for 4 minutes before you come in and get the chart and start charting. And there's no relief that is like that when your partner comes in right before the birth, because that's when the most unlikely chances for complications. So like if I have to handle a shoulder dystocia, a hemorrhage, a neonatal resuscitation, I really, really want a second person there. So anytime that you just make it right before the birth, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I don't think it registered to her that I was even there until like well into her postpartum. She was like, oh, it's like, yeah, slid in there.
Yeah, she asked me like, hey, I remember her saying like, is Kelly coming? And I was like, yeah, who knows when? We'll see. She didn't tell me she's coming. So I don't know. But it was she was coming.
It was so great to like slip into, because you're just like, everything was going so smoothly. She was so in control. It was such a straight, like, praises. It was such a straightforward birth and a relatively straightforward postpartum too. And so it was just like such a gift that it was that one that was feeling a little stressful for me to get to.
That's the thing though, right? Like we're rarely needed. And why would we need to announce that you have arrived? And hey, just so you know, I mean, it's just like, no one cares. We're doing our thing, right? Mm-hmm. One interesting thing about her postpartum is that her placenta didn't come for about an hour after she had her baby. And we don't have a whole lot in the chart about that. So I don't think we were doing a whole lot of things about it. I think we were just being cool and like encouraging things physiologically. We hadn't given her any herbs. We didn't give her any medication or anything like that. She got out of the tub and moved to the bed and had her placenta there. Her perineum was intact. She lost 150 cc's of blood, which is incredibly small. It's on the very low end of blood loss. And then she just was like very, very happy, very appreciative, very wonderful to take care of, because she got to have all of those pieces of her birth, which was wanting to have a relatively undisturbed experience and just knowing that somebody was there just in case. And a little follow up on the arrhythmia is we heard it postpartum. So we're never sure as that arterius ductus, I can't remember exactly how it goes. It's a phenomenon with the babies switching over their cardiovascular system, and a valve actually like opens up and allows all 4 chambers of the heart to work and stuff like that. We didn't know if the arrhythmia was going to be, changed by that. Usually it resolves on its own. That was the information we got, that arrhythmia was going to resolve on its own. And we still heard it up to, I think I had in the chart, through 6 weeks postpartum. She'd been to the pediatrician relatively quickly to just have them, take a close look. They were not concerned. And then the visit between 6 weeks and 13 weeks, somehow it had resolved and we didn't hear it anymore at 13 weeks. And that was how the whole arrhythmia thing ended up resolving.
Which is so cool to see, like, something like that just sort of resolve on its own with some, maturity and growth and things like that. But also, again, looking back too, to see all of the many different things that she did throughout her pregnancy, that she thought about throughout her pregnancy, that led into this experience where she was like, wow, that was exactly what I wanted. She felt like she was in control from the get-go. And that's really what we want for women, no matter the outcome, what the birth looks like, whatever, that women feel like this is a mutually trustworthy situation, and that we, like, not only can they trust us, but that we fully trust them and their ability to make really good decisions for themselves when they feel strongly about something. And so that's like a sweet takeaway that I have from that.
Yeah. And so back in the beginning of our practice, we had so many pieces, really intentional pieces at play. And not saying that we don't anymore, but one of these rhythms that we use to ask our clients is just to reflect on their process and share with us, because we do a whole year of postpartum care. And so we really create space for not rushing the process of the birth, not rushing, integrating that experience. And we, many points in the postpartum, say, do you have any questions about your birth? Do you have any insight? Do you have any things that you want to share? And so we did ask our clients back then to, like, if they wanted to formally kind of like express what their overall opinion was, or just reflection. And so I found that while I was looking through her information, and some of the things that she shared about her experience I think this is the part that just made me feel like, whoa, this matters. What we're doing here really matters. So she had said previously, before her birth, she wanted it to be quiet. She wanted it to be intimate. She wanted it to be reflective. She wanted it to be empowering and instinctive. Those were the words that she was using to describe her future birth. She also wanted her 2-year-old to be present. She wanted her husband to be able to catch the baby. And what she wrote in the reflection was, my midwives listened. They affirmed. When our son came, they held space for exactly what I asked for, even in ways that I couldn't know to request. His labor was quick and so intense, and I soon began to feel overwhelmed and insufficient for the task. At one point, I remember thinking, it's too much. I'm not enough for this. And into that headspace came my midwives, not to rescue me, but to help me work out the labor that I had set out to have. In particular, Tiffany had an amazing gift for being present but practically invisible, supporting my desires for empowerment and honoring of instinct in the most incredible way. I remember her arriving and doing her assessment, and I remember her encouraging me that I could push when I wanted and reach down to feel the baby's head if I wished. And when it was time to push, I knew that she was near and watching over us, but I was also acutely aware that I was driving the bus. I would receive exactly and only as much direction and intervention as I asked for, which made me feel stronger and more capable. I felt on a deep level that if she trusted my instincts, that they must be trustworthy. And that is available to everyone. That type of experience is available, and the midwifery model of care supports it the best. And I just want people to understand that if you want to be driving the bus, you can drive the bus. You can get as much direction and intervention as you ask for. You can set up your care to be that way, to make you feel stronger, to make you feel more capable, to trust your instincts. And I want women to own that, to have that, to feel grounded in that place. It happens with a series of really intentional choices, and it can be a lot of hard work in order to preserve that vision, but it's worth it. What you look back on for your birth and what you get to say and how it was, it's absolutely worth it.
Gosh, and I remember reading that when we first got it, but that last line about like if like she trusted my instincts, then I knew like they must be trustworthy. And so women can get really lost in labor, and it's hard sometimes to be like, what am I feeling? Am I actually this close? Am I pushing too soon? All of these questions. And just that like a slight you don't even probably didn't even say much at the time, but just that like encouragement of yes, listen to your body. Yes, like this is exactly what it's meant to be. Like, that is so meaningful, and the fact that she took away, like, that soft encouragement and presence, then turned inward to be like, "Yes, my instincts are trustworthy. Like, yes, I can be strong in this. Yes, I am capable. Like, I'm doing this," right? Gosh, like, that impacts everything, right? Imagine feeling that at your birth versus like just that feeling of being railroaded and not trusted and being like, I have no clue what the heck just happened. It's really sweet. And again, it just matters so much who you bring alongside you, where you plan to do those things, the insight that you have that you're bringing, who your care provider is, who your team is in general. Just it matters so dang much. I'm really thankful that we did this episode because that was a really cool one to kind of think back on. And hopefully women are encouraged by all of the things that this mom had to kind of walk through and climb out of, and what she got to walk into also and through. Super cool.
And like, of course, we want women to find that. We want women to find that model in their own community. But if for some reason that is not available, a really, really close second to this philosophy is our childbirth education course. And so that's where we have all of this preventative information about specific things like hypertension and navigating, gestational diabetes and still staying low risk and in having like, all of those aspects of that. And that is available, of course, for any woman. And so we encourage you to take a look at that. You'll find that in the show notes, along with our full script hypertension protocol and our full script blood sugar balancing protocol. So we are not gatekeepers here. We want that information available to all women so that they can empower themselves in their own preventative care and pregnancy. So that is there for you guys to take advantage of and look forward to. And that's it for us today, but we will see you guys back here at the same exact time next week. That's a wrap.
Hey ladies, if you're loving the show and want to help us keep it ad-free so we can keep talking about all things birth and women's health without cutting to an ad about electrolytes or grass-fed beef sticks, here is how you can support us. First, leave us a quick review or a rating. It helps more women, new moms, and birth enthusiasts find our show, and it honestly means so much to us to be reminded that you love what we are doing here. Second, share this episode with a friend, with a doula buddy, or anyone who is on their own holistic health or natural birth journey. And third, hop on our newsletter list. This is where we share bonus goodies, behind-the-scenes stuff, fun little extras you just won't hear on the show. You can find that link to join in our show notes below. Thanks so much for being a part of this growing, empowered community. We could not do it without you.
Wrap.